I'm gonna record this, even though you're all here. This is a class as we finish up the book. We are in Canto 15. While crossing the sands upon the dike, banking Phlegethon, Dante sees the violent against nature who run perpetually looking towards the human body against which they offended. Capaneus is looking toward God because he offended God. These people are looking toward their bodies because they offended their bodies. They didn't use it properly. He meets his old teacher, Brunetto Latini, whom he addresses with affectionate regret and deep gratitude for past benefits. Brunetto predicts Dante's ill treatment at the hands of the Florentines. All right, now the hard bargain bears us on, while stream from off the waters makes a canopy above to fend the fire from bank and stream. Just as the men of Flanders, anxiously twixt Bruges and Wissant, build their bulwarks wide, fearing the thrust of the onset of the seas. These are banks, like dams that hold back the water, like in the Netherlands. You know why they call it the Netherlands? They're the Netherlands. What is Nether? This is Netherhell. So what does it mean?
It's far away.
It's the lowest one, as opposed as the upper hell. So Nether means low, and this country of the Netherlands.
Like highlands.
What about but what about Netherlands? Why are they called the lowlands?
Netherlands.
They are below sea level. Don't you know that? The country of Holland or Netherlands, they build these dams, dikes, dams, banks that hold the water back. When I was a kid, grew up listening to the story of a little boy stuck his finger in the dike because it was going to. So that whole country is essentially under sea level. They're called the lowlands, the Netherlands.
So wait, Holland is like the highlands?
Well, no, the Netherlands is the entire country.
Right.
Holland is actually just a part of, it's just but we call it Holland. But anyway, here we go. Or as the Paduans dike up Brentas tide to guard their towns and castles ere the heat loose down the snows from Carianta's side. Such fashion were the brinks that banked the lead, save that whoever it was, their engineer in breadth and height had builded them less great. Already we'd left the wood behind so far that I had turned back to those whose glades could not have told their whereabouts. And here, hurrying close to the banks, troops of shades met us, who eyed us much as passerbys eye one another when daylight fades. In other words, they squint at them. I don't know why they're squinting. He talks about their squinty is what he calls it. We would say squint. To dusk and the new moon is in the sky, and knitting up their brows they squinted at us like an old tailor at his needle's eye. Then while the whole group peered upon me thus, one of them recognized me, who caught hard at my own gown's hem and cried, "Oh, marvelous!" When he put his hand out to me, I stared at his scorched face, searching him through and through, so that the shriveled skin and features scarred might not mislead my memory. Then I knew. And stooping down to bring my face near his, I said, "What, you here, Sir Brunetto, you?" This is his teacher, his more like a tutor. And remember, they're bent over and running. That's their punishment, running, forever running. Much like the people in the second circle who were being blown about by their lust, these people are having to run, fruitlessly running. I mean, purposely, there's no winner. It's just forever and ever running, running, running. And so he bends over like this and talks to him, and the guy said, "I can't stop. I got to keep running." So he says, "My son, pray take it not amiss if now Brunetto Latini at thy side turn back a while, letting his troop dismiss." "With all my heart I beg you," I cried, "or I'll sit down with you as you like best, if there will permit, for he's my guide." "Oh son," said he being Virgil, "should one of our this is Bruno Latini. Should one of our lot rest 1 second, 100 years, he must lie low, or even beat the flames back from his breast. Therefore go on. I at thy skirts will go, and then rejoin my household, who run this race forever lost and weeping for his woe." I'm gonna have to skip something here, just for the sake. So this is Bruno Latini, and they are running next to each other, having this conversation. Dante explains why he's there. Bruno Latini encourages and says, "You're gonna be famous someday, son, you just keep it up." So Bruno Latini encourages him.
Sweet. So, but he's being punished for what again?
He's guilty of sin against his body, which is the sin of homosexuality. These people are guilty. The interesting thing about this, well, I want to keep reading so you'll see. Look at line 82, make it 79. We'll skip to line 79. Is everybody keeping up with me? All right, I answered him. Might I have had my will, believe me, you'd not have been thrust apart from human life, for I keep with me still, stamped on my mind, and now stabbing my heart, the dear benign paternal image of you. You living, you hourly teaching me the art by which men grow immortal. Know this too, I am so grateful that while I breathe air, my tongue shall speak the thanks which are your due. This is how he feels about his teacher. Did you hear that?
What page is this?
This is page 164, number 82. He has stamped on my mind, he says, and stabbing my heart, the dear, benign, paternal image of you, you living, you hourly teaching me the art by which men grow immortal. He said, I'll always tell people, I'll always be grateful for what you did for me.
Oh.
And then he goes on 88, your words about my future, I'll write fair. In other words, he predicted that Virgil Dante would be famous, but also be persecuted. Your words about my future I'll write fair with no other text to show to a wise lady who'll gloss them if ever I get to her. Who's the wise lady that Dante's trying to get to?
Oh,
Beatrice?
Beatrice,
Yes.
yeah.
This much I'd have you know, I can stand steady, so conscious chide not, facing unafraid whatever fortune bring, for I am ready. Time and time again I've heard these forecasts made, the whims of luck shall find me undeterred, so let her ply her wheel, the churl his spade. So he says, I've been hearing this from various people that I'm gonna go under some persecution, and that we know that's gonna happen. And then he says, and when my master's ear has brought that word, he turned right face about and looked me straight in his eye and said, well heeded is well heard. Yet nonetheless, I move on in the debate with Sir Bruno, asking him whose fame in all this man is wisest and most great. So Dante asks Bruno, who else is down here with you? And he says, some, he replied, it will be well to name. The rest must pass over for sheer dearth of time. 'Twould take too long to mention them. And just mark this, sort of bracket it. All these, in brief, were clerks and men of worth in letters and scholarship, none more so, and all defied by one same taint on earth. So bracket that. He says all of us were literary people. We were writers. We were clerks. We had to do with writing. And he said we've all been defiled by. He handles this particular sin with great sensitivity. He never goes into any detail. He never isn't sensational about it. In some ways, it's just another sin, and he doesn't hold it against his teacher for having committed this sin. He still can respect the person while criticizing the sin. And he says we're all defiled by the same taint. Then he goes on 109. In that sad throng goes Francis, Orozco, and Priscian, who could thy hunger have sated such scabbed meat thou mightest also have seen also him whom the servant of servants once translated from Arno to Bachelone, where he left the body hid unstrung and innervated. Underline that. That's the only reference really to the sin itself. This person who was also guilty of that, his body he been unstrung and innervated. In other words, it says this particular sin innervates the body. What is innervate? It was on our quiz last week.
It's like deprives of energy.
Okay, so not energize, but innervate. So this particular sin, the only thing he comes close to identifying, we all know what it is because we read it. We know, but he just doesn't sensationalize it. And then he goes on to say,
I'm confused, what happened? You just said.
he says he doesn't sensationalize the sin. This is the sin of homosexuality, but he doesn't sensationalize. He doesn't.
What does sensationalize mean?
He doesn't, tell the gory details or the vivid details. He doesn't describe anything. He doesn't even condemn it any more than he's already been condemned. He just accepts the fact it's a sin. Dante knows it. This guy knows it. But that's all. He doesn't make a bigger deal about it than it is.
What if it was like adultery or something though? Like would that be in that circle?
Well, you remember in the second circle, there were the lustful, but they committed adultery, so.
Why is that like two?
Yeah, why is the homosexuality in this one and then the like lustful is in the other?
Like that seems like it's just gonna be like all together.
We can't be too precise about it. But-
Let's just let
but-
Dante do his thing.
Yeah, but we do know that the sins of incontinence, Huck, are less, as a whole, are less severe than these sins. These are the sins of violence. Now, remember, this was Aristotle, this was the church who kind of organized the sins this way. But as a whole, that's all you need to know, is that sins of incontinence mean you're just too weak to not do that. These sins are more purposeful, are more, they're violence against the body in a way that the other is going to be a more natural use of the body, but still a sin. I'm trying to explain something that I'm not quite sure I understand exactly how they're organized.
I'm not trying to get like too off track, but wasn't Achilles in like another part of how, but like, isn't he supposed to be, wasn't he like in legend, like, gay? Like in legend, he was gay.
Many of the Greeks.
Yeah, so like,
Yeah,
why aren't they there?
Greeks were
It-
Like,
they were
And
very.
it's not Dante who's condemning them to hell, this is the scheme that the church inherited, and that he inherited. Let me go on. Let me go on, okay? I would say more, but must not, for a drift of fresh dust rising from the sandy ground warns me to cease and make my going swift. Now listen to this. Here come folk with whom I mayn't be found. Keep handy my thesaurus, where yet I live on. I ask no more. Circle the word thesaurus. You know what that is, right? Right. Apparently Bruno Latini actually wrote one, and that's a tremendous tool to writers. If you've never used one,
So
and now
he invented it or not?
not the idea, but he wrote one.
Like the first, or one of the first?
One in Italian.
Oh, I see, okay, that's big.
Right.
Yes, it is, yes.
All right, listen how he ends this. He says, and then he turned around and seemed like one of those who over the flat and open course in the fields besides Verona run for the green cloth, and he seemed at that not like a loser, but a winning runner. Isn't that interesting? He doesn't call him a loser, even though he has lost a great deal, he's in hell, but he calls him, he ran, like this encouraged Bruno Latini to see his old pupil, and he ran like the winning runner of a race, not the loser. I think all that's interesting.
I like that he still respects them.
Absolutely. All right, now,
I'm sorry.
I hate to do this to you. I hate to do this to you, but I hate not to do it to you. I want you to turn in the back of the book to page 285. Without looking, this is the last canto in the book. What number is it? Don't look. No? 34.
42.
34. Why are there 34? All the others have 33. Why does this book have 34? What do you mean special?
That's a conclusion.
It's an introduction.
Yeah.
The extra canto was an introduction to the whole comedy. So there's 33 plus 1. Think of it that way. The next two books, right here, are 33.
I was looking on Amazon for the whole thing, but in modern English, and I couldn't, because I can't understand this like without you. So I
Well,
couldn't.
you'd put me out of business if you.
Yeah.
You don't want, whoever comes in here, you're gonna, if you don't need, no, see, that's where we want you to be. We want to teach ourselves out of a job. We want to teach you so well. It's great, Mr. Powell, I can handle this from now. That would be the greatest thing any teacher could hear. I don't need you anymore. I can do it on my own and mean it. That's what we are trying to create or help produce in students, and people who don't need human beings to teach them because they've got books and they have their own means of doing it. All right, here we go. Last canto. We may not get it all done right now. It's pretty short.
I only
Yeah.
have 32.
Is the,
What? Now you gotta keep going. 285.
is the last question we're gonna do 63?
Yeah, but we're gonna actually look at the last questions in the book. So let's turn to page 285. Anybody wanna help read? All right, you got two people, and I'll read the story and you can read the text. Canto 34. After passing over the region of Judica, where the traders to their lords are wholly immersed in ice, the poets see this, they actually see Satan, devouring the shades of Judas, Brutus, and Cassius. They clamber along his body until, passing through the center of the earth, they emerge into a rocky cavern, and here they follow the stream of Lethe upward until it brings them out on the island Purgatory in the Antipodes, which is Antarctica.
So Satan was just eating Judas.
Yes, we'll read that right now. So let's start with Mariah. Guys, we've done this for 3 weeks. This is the end. This is the conclusion. Pay attention.
Vexilla Regus Produent Inferno. Encountering us, canst thou distinguish him? Look forward, said the master as we journey. As when a thick mist breathes, or when the rim of night creeps up across our hemisphere, a turning windmill looms in the distance then. I thought I saw a shadowy mass appear, then shrank behind my leader from the blast. Because there was no other cabin here, I stood with fear I righted, where at last the shades, quite covered by the frozen sheet, gleamed through the ice like straws in crystal glass. Some lie at length and others stand in it. This one upon his head and that upright, another like a bow bent face to feet.
So you get the picture as frozen ice. It's the river of Cocytus. Everything's frozen, and all the sinners are being punished by either being ensconced completely by the ice, like horizontal, or partially in ice. Satan is in ice up to his waist, and then up, from that part up, he's out of ice.
So this is the fraud complex.
Yes,
right?
the ultimate pit of hell. The reach.
And they're in ice.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
I like how, I feel like they're, okay, not to like compare punishments, cause they all sound miserable, not gonna lie, but like, some of them, even like in the vestibule, like, that's pretty bad, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I
Yeah.
don't think there's much like variation in the punishments as far as.
In fact, the punishments really, what they do here is indicate the sin.
The
Remember,
crime.
why is this cold? Because their hearts were cold. They had absolutely no love. At least the lustful, they had love. It was lust, but
Right.
it was a desire for another human being. Wrong, and they're in hell for it. But here, there was no love whatsoever. It was the coldest you can get. All right.
And when we had come so far that it seemed right to my dear master he should let me see that creature fairest once the sun of light. He moved him from before me and halted me and said, Behold now this, behold the place where thou must steel thy soul with constancy.
Yes, meaning Satan.
How cold I grew, how faint and fearfulness. And me not, reader, I shall not waste breath, telling what words are powerless to express. This was not life, and yet it was not death. If thou hast wit to think how I might fare, bereft or of both, let fancy aid thy faith. The emperor of the sorrowful realm was there. Out of the girding ice he stood, breast high, and to his arm alone the giants were less comparable than to a giant eye.
If we were able to read it, there are giants in hell as well, so we missed that one. They're in the lower part of hell, and he's bigger than a giant.
Wait, are the giants like the guy, remember like in the beginning where they said devils slept with human woman?
Yeah.
Those are the.
I don't remember, I'll take a look at that, yeah.
I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah.
That's, some people thought Goliath was one of those.
Yes,
ones.
very good, that's right, the Nephilim.
Yeah, and the Nephilim, that's what they're called.
Judge then how huge the stature of the whole, that to so huge a part bears symmetry. If he was once as fair as now he's foul, and dared outface his maker in rebellion, well may he be the fount of all our dole. And marvel 'twas, out-marveling a million. When I beheld three faces in his head, the one in front was two, mid-centered, on the shoulders, made union with this, and each with either fellow knit at the crest, in triune junction web. The right was of a hue twixt white and yellow. The left was colored like the men who dwell where now runs down the source of Snowy Shallow. From under each sprang two great wings that well fitted such a monstrous bird as that. I never saw ship with such a spread of sail. Wingless and like the pinions of a bat, their fashion was, and as they flapped and whipped, three winds went rushing over the icy flat, and froze up all Cocytus, and he wept from his 6 eyes, and down his triple chin, runnels of tears and bloody slaver dripped. Each mouth devoured a sinner clenched within, frayed by the fangs that like blacks beneath the braid. 3 at a time he tortured them for sin. But all the bites the one in front might take were nothing to the claws that flayed his hide, and sometimes stripped his back to the last flake. That wretch up there whom keenest pangs divide is Judas called Iscariot, said my Lord.
Okay, sorry, you finished.
Okay. His head within, his jerking legs outside.
All right, you see Trinity here, or triad, we call them triads. What's the triad?
Judas, Brutus, and Cassius.
Yes.
That's one of them. There's
And
another.
also his like 3 heads.
He has 3 faces.
Satan or?
He-
Whoa.
Say,
I didn't even realize the three faces
so there are
were
3
triad.
faces. Of course, that, I said the word Trinity, and that's sort of the idea. This is the unholy Trinity. You know, Satan, there are 3 kind of, there's only one Satan. And in the book of Revelation, you hear about the beast, you hear about the false prophet. So there's kind of an unholy Trinity in Revelation. But in this case, he's just tying that all together with 3 faces. He's eating 3 sinners. Who are those 3 sinners? Judas Iscariot. Judas.
What did Cassius do again?
He and Brutus were the co-conspirators against Julius Caesar.
Where were the ones, I'm sorry, where were they all 3 listed? Because I see Judas at the bottom, but I remember them all kind of.
Wait, sorry, Brutus is one of them?
Yeah, Cassius, Brutus, and Cassius, Brutus, of course, Judas.
I'm kind of shocked that Cassius and Brutus are in the lowest part, because I feel like, I mean, I know that like they murdered him and it was like bad, but at the same time, I feel like their hearts were, their intent was like they thought they were protecting the people.
You know why? This is my theories, because of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Shakespeare makes Brutus a hero. I've always thought he was kind of a hero. But if you're a Roman, if you're an Italian, it'd be like making a hero out of John Wilkes Booth, killing Abraham Lincoln. And if you're for that side, I guess you could see him that way, but I think that's true. Our impression of Brutus is marred, influenced by that guy right there. I always thought there was
I'm sorry.
something about him.
Yeah, he's a little off.
I hope you're seeing what I'm seeing, it's just not my eyes that.
I think that like extremely talented people are kind of odd. Like they're just like naturally like just kind of like
I mean,
like
my forehead is
like some of
definitely
like
a
the world's
problem.
biggest icons like Michael Jackson and all them like they were just kind of like different,
Yep.
which is fine.
Maybe they're not too worried about what people think of them, they're too busy being what they are, and that's odd. Alright, let's keep reading. Puck's gonna read, we may not finish, but we're come close.
Okay. As for the pair whose heads hang hitherward, I've never heard that word, I like hitherward, from the black mouth, the lens of Brutus sprawl. Highlight Brutus, that's the other. Okay.
See how he rides?
Sprawl. What?
Oh, sorry.
See how he rides and utters never a word, and strong through the Cassius, that's the other one, is his fellow thrall. But come, for night is rising on the world once more. We must depart, we have seen all.
No, just underline that, it's over. They're out, or they're heading out, it's all, it said, we have seen all. Notice the 3 faces are 3 different colors, yellow, red, and black. And each represents the 3 sons, the 3 people groups in the world, and the 3 sons of this is, he thought of all this, the 3 sons of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Japheth sort of represented the Europeans, is the red face. Ham represents Africa, and Shem is the Middle Eastern.
Which one, didn't one of them do something bad to Noah and he cursed him? Or like, I don't know, I think he saw him when he was naked and then he did, when Noah got
Yeah, that
naked.
was, I think that was
Oh, that's-
Ham or Shem, not Shem, because Shem is the father of Israel, you know, so I'll have to look that up.
It was Ham and Japheth or something.
Right,
Or is him and Japheth?
yeah.
Japheth.
Anyway, watch how they get out. This is how we'll read as much as we can before you go. You have to be studying. Tomorrow we'll devote the whole time to reviewing, tomorrow and Wednesday. But if you're waiting for tomorrow for me to do it for you, you're already in trouble. I can't study it for you.
We have all seen you, or we have seen all.
Yeah,
Then, as he bade, about his neck I curled, my arms enclasped him. And he spied the time and place, and when the wings were wide unfurled, set him upon the shaggy flanks to climb. And thus from shag to shag descended down, twixt matted hair and crusts of frozen rime.
okay. Satan is depicted as a satyr, S-A-T-Y-R, half man and
You
half
know, what are
goat.
they riding
Half man, half
exactly?
goat.
Are they riding,
I
are they
thought
riding?
it was gonna be like, sorry.
Either one.
Go ahead.
Isn't he supposed to be like pretty?
Are they riding?
Right, like, it's supposed to be like.
We've already mentioned
Right?
that.
Are they riding on Satan? Or are
Not
they
riding,
riding? It sounds like
R-I-D-I-N-G.
they're riding.
This is what they're doing. Satan is a half goat, half man. So listen to this. They literally grab hold of his shaggy hide and start to climb down Satan. Well, interesting thing's gonna happen. It's really weird, but when he gets to the center of the earth, Dante's not aware of where they are. They're just climbing down Satan, right? At some point, Virgil turns upside down. So like, you climb up a ladder, you climb down the ladder the same way. It would be odd and weird to turn upside down and climb down the ladder, but
He's
that's what
going
they
through
do.
the whole, like,
That-
hell.
They turn around and start,
Wait, so he's like walking
what do
up
we
like,
do?
yeah, like that? Like that scene in Puss in Boots,
Well-
where he like walks on the roof? and
Let me
he
tell you
gets
what
on
happens. They
outside?
climb through the center of hell.
The sword?
And
Oh, I love that.
listen, they climb through the center of hell, and Dante, you know, he's going down, so he turns to look up at the head of Satan. But when he turns to look up, he sees the feet of Satan. So when they crawl through the center of the earth, everything flips. And now they're crawling up instead of down. And I'll just have to tell you, we can read this tomorrow, but they're through. They find this river Lethe, they get on the river of Lethe or follow it all the way up to the top of the earth, the surface of the earth, and that is where purgatory is. In Antarctica is a mountain called Purgatory. Let me just read
Is
it to
heaven
you.
and earth also, like inside earth also, or is that like above?
Where?
Heaven, cause he goes to heaven.
Remember, heaven is in, the way he's depicting it, is in the solar system, it's in the sky.
That's-
Purgatory is still on the earth because it's still not heaven. And so heaven is a completely different thing. I've never read the book, I've read about half of Paradise and can't get through it, because I don't understand. You know, it's like, what does this represent, what is this? It says something about us that we can relate to hell, and we can even relate to purgatory. But it's like, when you start talking about heaven, it's just like, it blows us away, and I think Dante's trying to capture some of that, when you just like, it's almost you have to be in heaven to understand heaven. All we can do now is trust that it's bliss, it's perfect. So I think that's I should say this before we go, it's really interesting, don't ask me where she gets this, but Dorothy Sayers says that in Dante's mind, again, I don't know where she gets these dimensions from, Satan is 1,000 to 1,500 feet tall, which would be the height of the Empire State Building.
I honestly thought he was, like, when they were describing him, I thought he was gonna be like a frost giant, like Loki or something, but then they're like, oh, he's a goat man. And I'm like,
Honestly, no, when I think of it, I think it could be anything. I feel like you could just
I
be
mean,
like,
also,
I'm
he's
gonna
supposed to
chill
be
you,
pretty.
miles
Like, he's
tall,
supposed to be pretty.
I'm gonna be
Well, well, Lars said, well, I'm not- well, he made reference to that. He already talked about in heaven. He's not in heaven anymore. So in heaven, he was beautiful.
I'm a